years.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Saturday, the 30th of August, live across the UK. This is Saturday Morning Live.
Yes, good morning to you. A fresh wave of protests is expected across this weekend as judges overturn the High Court's order to clear asylum seekers from Epping's Bell Hotel. We'll be keeping you updated as the news develops.
And the Conservative Party is calling for an investigation into Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner after she was accused of avoiding £40,000 in stamp duty when buying a second home. Are Labour a bunch of hypocrites? We'll be dealing with that.
And in the US, courts rule that many of President Trump's global tariffs are actually illegal. Could this upend America's foreign policy agenda? Washington editor of The Times, Katie Bowles, will join us live from Washington, D.C.
And Prince Harry is set to meet King Charles on his UK return next week, but Prince William rejects the reunion. Can a royal reconciliation between the brothers ever be on the cards? We'll also be remembering Princess Diana as tomorrow marks 28 years since her death.
And of course, let's talk fat jabs. The cost of the weight loss jabs will be discounted in the UK pharmacies when a price hike comes into force next week. Is this progress, or will it create even more problems?
The biggest stories, boldest opinions and liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Olivia Utley.
And I'm Nana Akweer. Your weekend starts here.
Very exciting show, I think, for everyone involved. We've got the Epping judgment overturned by the Home Office. That's a bit of a Pyrrhic victory, I would say, for the government. It's going to be pretty awkward for them. They've had to argue that it's a good thing to have asylum seekers in hotels, and I don't think many of the public agree with that.
No, I think it's a very bad thing, actually, and they know it, we know it, everyone knows it. It's a ludicrous nonsense. It costs a fortune, and frankly, they need to come up with some better answers if they're planning to win the next general election. I think they've got two hopes, Bob Hope and no hope.
Well, we want to hear from you too. We have a big poll today suggesting that Reform would gain a majority of 400 seats in the general election. What do you make of that? Please do get in touch with us. Send us your views, post your comments, visit gbnews.com/yoursay.
But before we do anything else, let's get your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good morning, I'm Bethany Elsey. Here's your top stories from the GB newsroom at 2 minutes past 10. Several councils are considering legal action to try and stop hotels being used to house asylum seekers. It's after the Court of Appeal overturned an injunction that would have prevented 138 migrants remaining at the Bell Hotel in Epping in Essex. The decision has reignited anger among local residents, and protests were held there last night. 3 men were arrested for violent disorder, suspicion of assaulting a police officer and suspicion of drink driving after a car was driven on the wrong side of the road towards a police cordon. The Conservatives are calling for an investigation into the Deputy Prime Minister's tax affairs. The Telegraph is reporting Angela Rayner saved £40,000 in stamp duty when buying her seaside flat in East Sussex by telling tax authorities it was her main home. But it's also understood she told Thameside Council her constituency house in Greater Manchester remains her primary residence for council tax purposes. Although the changes are entirely legal, the Conservative Party chairman, Kevin Collinrake, has written to the Independent Standards Advisor claiming inappropriate tax avoidance. A US Court of Appeal has ruled that most of Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal. It says the president was not legally allowed to declare national emergencies and impose taxes on almost every country. Tariffs have been a pillar of Mr. Trump's second term in office, but they have increased volatility in financial markets. The court is allowing the tariffs to remain in place until October to give the Trump administration a chance to appeal to the Supreme Court. At least one person has been killed and dozens injured, including children, in what Ukraine's president is describing as a massive attack. Russia launched 540 drones and dozens of missiles overnight that hit residential and retail areas in the southeastern city of Zaporizhia. Volodymyr Zelensky says it's clear Russia is disregarding diplomacy and is calling on real action from the US and Europe to end the war. And the president of the Palestine Authority and 80 other officials have had their US visas revoked. It means they can no longer attend the United Nations Assembly meeting in New York next month. Several US allies, including France, Malta and Australia, have announced plans to recognise Palestine as a state at the meeting. The State Department claims it's acting in the interests of national security. Those are the latest headlines. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Bethany, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Olivia Utley and Nana Akua.
Akua. Sorry.
Akua.
Think Akua and then think Akua and then...
That's a very good way of remembering it. Thank you very much. Well, the government has won its appeal to keep almost 140 migrants at the Bell Hotel in Epping.
Senior judges overturned an earlier order to move the men out by mid-September, saying the first ruling was seriously flawed.
Therefore, we grant permission to appeal both to Somani and to the Home Secretary against the grant of the interim injunction. We allow the appeals and we set aside the injunction imposed on 19 August 2025.
But Border Security Minister Dame Angela Eagle says the government remains committed to ending the use of migrant hotels.
Well, nobody wants to close the Bell Hotel and all other asylum hotels more than me, and we have pledged that we are going to do that by the end of the Parliament. Today's judgment allows us to do it in a planned and managed way so that we can get the system running and make sure that we can exit hotels for once and for all.
So, with protests set to take place over the weekend, is this a win for the Home Office? Well, we're joined now by GB News' national reporter Jack Carson. Jack, good morning. What more can you tell us?
Well, of course, there was, in the words of residents here last night, a protest that took place outside the hotel. There was devastation at that result and that temporary injunction being overturned. You mentioned some of the words in that ruling, saying that it was seriously flawed in principle, the original judgment, including one of the reasons that they gave being that losing capacity here would mean capacity would have to be found elsewhere in the system. But let's get some reaction to that decision from Jamie McIvos, the only Reform Councillor on Epping Forest District Council. Jamie, thanks for joining us this morning. Just give us your reaction to the ruling yesterday.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted that the people of Epping have not given up on their peaceful protesting, but obviously I am devastated. I'm gutted for those women, particularly those local mums and those local schoolgirls who yesterday were talking to me outside the hotel emotionally, because they really thought that next week when the children go back to school that this hotel would be closed and that the people in the hotel would be moved. And instead what we now have is parents now talking about having a rota along the pavement as to who can supervise young girls going to school. In what sort of country does that have to happen? You know, this is a seriously bad situation, and I would urge the Home Office, despite the ruling, to empty this hotel immediately. It is next to a school. What does this government not understand when it comes to the safety of women and girls?
Now, the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, had said that the European Court of Human Rights was being used against the people of Epping, but in that idea of higher rulings and that the rights of the ECHR came above the rights of local planning, the High Court judges said that was unattractive to them. So is it right that the European Court of Human Rights is being put against the people of Epping?
Of course it's not, and that's why we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights as soon as possible. You know, this is Britain. We should only be dictated by our laws that our Parliament, our sovereign, so-called sovereign Parliament, has legislated. We should not have the use of foreign courts and foreign statute to even come near decisions that affect such local issues. And you know, one thing that we should recognise is Sir Winston Churchill, the former Member of Parliament for Epping, was instrumental in the European Convention of Human Rights, and obviously it had very very noble reasons to be founded when it was. But I bet you Sir Winston Churchill did not ever dream of a day that convention would be used against his own constituents, particularly the safety of women and girls here in his own constituency.
Now, the Home Office Minister, Dame Angela Eagles, said yesterday that the reason they appealed in the first place was because they want to end hotels. They've committed to ending hotels by the end of the Parliament, that they wanted it to be done in a controlled and orderly way. Is that the government not right in wanting to do it in a controlled way?
Well, the government haven't got a clue what they're doing, have they? You can't trust a word that they say. I don't trust any of those Home Office ministers. Bear in mind, some of those ministers in the Home Office have sat on the Home Affairs Select Committee whilst they were in opposition. They knew that if they entered government, and because of the horrific record of the previous government, it was almost a given that Labour were going to win that general election. So they knew that they would have the responsibility to deal with these hotels, among other issues of immigration, but they had no plan. It is a disgrace. And, in business, you would never get away with taking over department, having 3 or 4 years notice of doing so, and then not delivering when you take over. I actually believe that every single Home Office minister should resign. I think the Home Secretary's position is becoming very untenable because there is no plan. The government said by the end of this Parliament, and I think that is going to be a short Parliament at this rate, I think this government is one misstep from a general election. The people have had enough already. But let's be very clear. They have said they want to close every single hotel by the end of this Parliament. Post your timetable of plans to close these hotels. That would reassure the public, but they have no plans, so there's nothing to publish. And let's be real, the Home Secretary had a PR opportunity here to close this hotel because of the extenuating circumstances, because of the legal action taken by the council, albeit rather late, but instead they've chosen to go against the people and go against those women and girls who have peacefully protested and brought this to national attention. And the government should hang their heads in shame, and I think actually every single minister in that Home Office should be ashamed of themselves. They cannot run that department, and they cannot protect the British people. The government has no idea what real working people are experiencing at the moment, and there is huge anxiety in this community, and the people of Epping must continue to peacefully protest.
Jamie McIver, thank you so much for joining us this morning to give you those views. The only Reform councillor there on Epping Forest District Council. Of course, they are still waiting for that full court hearing in October where they'll decide whether a permanent injunction can be brought into place.
Well, thank you very much, Jack. Now, joining us now is former Immigration Minister for the Conservatives, Kevin Foster. Kevin, obviously this is a bit of a Pyrrhic victory for the government. They didn't want to be arguing that it's a good thing that migrants are in hotels at the moment. That said, the Conservatives tried to end the use of migrant hotels. They didn't manage to do it. Labour at least has a plan. They're talking about a controlled and orderly end to this. What do you make of that?
Well, it's interesting to note there's now more people being accommodated in asylum hotels today than there was when they took over last year. So that's 1 year down of the 5 of a Parliament, and the numbers are going up. In terms of the plan they talk about, and looking into the judgment, the judges talk about there should have been a consideration of the wider picture, but don't seem to refer to things like, for example, them ending the use of the Bibby Stockholm and scrapping plans for larger accommodation centres, which, of course, would have provided an potential alternative to some of the hotels being used. So this is a Pyrrhic victory probably for the Home Office. It's, a tactical win on one hotel, but strategically an absolute disaster for them politically.
What do you think that the message has been sent then to other migrants? Because obviously we're in a global world. What has happened now would have definitely been, others would have seen what's happened. Do you think that this has sent a very bad message to, in terms of the people there, obviously in Epping, but for the migrants who may be seeing this, they're probably thinking, wonderful, let's go to the UK.
Well, I think the things that probably sent the worst message was things like scrapping the Rwanda plan and arguing that just, smash the gangs would somehow solve this issue. And we've seen record numbers arriving. Well, what this does say is that local councils are going to struggle to enforce against hotels being used as permanent accommodation, which under planning law is not something they should be being used for. And what's really quite pernicious is when you actually look into the judgment, it's, for example, normally in planning, you consider the impact on an area around the building concern of the use it is having. That's quite a common part of planning law. Now, in this instance, they look at the council being concerned about protests outside, And the judges come up with their own idea about how that could have been dealt with, and that was looking at alternatives in the form of policing powers and, quote, restraining protests. Well, banning protests is hardly a way of resolving this situation. So, there's a lot of questions that flow out of this judgment, but ultimately it all comes back to, there needs to actually be a credible plan for stopping the situation in the Channel, for removing people from this country who shouldn't be here, and yes, reviewing many of the international law obligations that are literally being abused. Although it's worth saying that this judgment, in terms of this hotel, was by domestic judges based on domestic law.
And I think that's a really important point, Kevin. You talk there about the Rwanda plan, the Conservatives' plan to stop the small boats. Of course, that plan was attempted to be enacted for 2.5 years, and you didn't actually manage to get anywhere with it. Part of that, I think you will say, and lots of other Conservatives will say, was because of the European Court of Human Rights. But our domestic laws too, and the Refugee Convention, stopped that Rwanda plan going ahead. If the Conservatives were in power now, why would things be any different? Wouldn't you be in exactly the same position as the Labour government?
Well, it's worth saying I'm not actually a spokesperson for the Conservative Party, so I'll just put that on the table. And most of the comments I'll make. Yes, we do need to look at our international law obligations, including the ECHR and the Refugee Convention. Many of these documents were written in the aftermath of World War II. The idea that people couldn't cross the border from Nazi Germany to a neighbouring country, that's clearly not the situation we're facing today. So if another party comes into power at the next election, they are going to have to have a plan of how they deal with that, how they deal with judicial activism, and also how they deal with the entrenching of many of these pieces of legislation into UK domestic law, and that being what the judiciary is then using to frustrate plans to deal with this situation.
So in your view, Kevin, what do you think the government need to do to try and solve this situation? Because so far, everything has failed.
Well, the government need to look at what countries like Australia and Greece have done. You do need to have larger scale accommodation centres. Yes, you need to enforce the law against those selling journeys to this country that are unlawful, but that needs to be part of then what you do around reducing the incentives to come here, things like ending family reunion, as Australia did, having plans to remove people, including to countries where you are struggling to actually get people back to the country concerned. And that may not just be about our own human rights law. When I was commenting on reforms plan last week, and it's not just sometimes about domestic barriers. There are some countries that play basic to a domestic audience by refusing enforced migration returns, and that's where you need a third country deal. Australia has one. We had one with Rwanda. And it's interesting to see, of course, Donald Trump in the US is now picking up an agreement with Rwanda for himself for exactly the same reason.
You touched on this a little earlier, Kevin, but what about the judiciary? There are critics who are suggesting that Lord Justice Bean, who presided over this hearing, actually has pretty strong links with the Labour Party. Do you trust his judgment? Do you think the judiciary perhaps needs reforming? Do you think we need to look at conflicts of interest within the judiciary?
Yeah, I think we do need to look at how the judiciary is performing. They shouldn't be immune from criticism in a democracy. People should be quite entitled to be able to say they think a judgment's incorrect. And it is quite remarkable to see such a sensitive judgment being delivered by someone with a very long political background. If you contrast that to the fact that if you're a serving police officer, you can't even canvass for a political party in the area where you serve. So there is a need to discuss more impartiality in the judiciary. I know our Shadow Secretary of State for Justice, Robert Jenrick's done quite a good bit of work around, for example, some immigration tribunals of discovering people who've got a long history of expressing opinions, then coming up with judgments that most of us would think were rather bizarre on the basis of the law concerned.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That's Kevin Foster. He's a former immigration minister. Right, well, the US courts rules that many of President Trump's global tariffs are illegal. We'll also be asking why has the president cancelled his engagements this weekend?
And are Labour a bunch of hypocrites? We'll be debating that after the newspaper review. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Working class pupils being left behind, being written off.
Well, as one of those white working class boys when I was younger, many moons ago, I would have to agree with her. I think it's definitely something that for years has been very obvious in the data, and it hasn't been addressed, and the gap has not been yet bridged. So I can't disagree with her, although I don't fully agree with her approach or lack of what that approach is at the moment.
Well, yeah, should there be special programmes for white working class kids? I mean, you do see a lot of special programmes for ethnic minority kids, for girls too.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't about identity politics. This is really about a disadvantaged group of people in our society. If we fail them, we fail everyone else, we fail Britain. I think we can't ignore white working class pupils just because they're white. They're disadvantaged. If they're disadvantaged, like any other disadvantaged group we've looked at, we've raised the bar with any other group. We've made sure that we've invested the right systems and processes in place, and we've seen the impact of that. Just look at London, where I've worked for the last 15 years or so. London has proven a blueprint where we can do this with disadvantaged students. So we need to roll that out to other places in the coastal towns, in the post-industrial towns in the UK.
Now, what did London do differently? Obviously, the London Challenge, there was a heap of money.
Funding, I don't think, is the main problem. If you think about the national funding formula, London turned around itself with the same national funding formula as other parts of the UK. It was the leadership, it was the expectations, the teaching quality that made the difference. And if you are going to put money anywhere, it should really probably go in attracting the best teachers into those places.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back. You're watching and listening to Saturday Morning Live with Olivia and Nana.
Yes, good morning to you. Right, let's see what you've been saying at gbnews.com/you'll say. Olivia, what have you got?
Well, we've got a message here from They're Not Listening saying the judiciary is not independent. There will always be chats taking place in corridors. I'd really like to hear more about what our viewers think about those alleged links between Lord Justice Bean, who delivered this judgment, and the Labour Party. Is the judiciary in need of reform? Then we've also got a pretty damning response to the Labour Party as a whole here from Lynn Dixon. How can the entire Labour Party look anyone in the eye when they come back from summer recess? They have their heads in the sand at the moment, not even caring about what's going on in this country, yet they will come back with their heads in the air and talking like everything is hunky-dory.
Well, this is one from Tony Quinn. I can just about read it, Tony. He said, the time has come for every British community living in the dangerous shadow of, and he calls them invader hotels. That's not quite fair, but what he means are some of the migrant hotels, or HMOs, to form a local home guard unit to escort and protect their women and children from what is happening to their daily lives. No doubt they'll be labelled as vigilantes, but so what? This government won't do it, so we the people will have to if we wish to live once again in a safe, civilised country. Now, I mean, that's kind of bordering a little bit, but there were talk about parents around the Epping Hotel creating some sort of protection, some sort of guard for children and people walking to school, so yeah.
And we've got another comment here from Andrew Wagner saying, what has happened to the ridiculous one in, one out? There's a little laughing emoji by that comment there. We're not hearing quite so much about the one in, one out policy anymore. There was a rumour that actually people smugglers were using that policy as advertising because the chances of being deported that was something like 1 in 17 under one in, one out. And actually, people smugglers thought that asylum seekers would be happy to take their chances. So perhaps that's why the Labour government's gone a little bit quiet over it.
And if you are that 1 in the 17, then you can obviously lodge lots of legal appeals and challenges if you are given the option or they try to deport you. Anne Robinson, now this is in response to the balloonacy that, where one migrant centre were given offers for balloon craft. There were actually people who were meant to be sent back or deported, but for some odd reason the council thought they'd spend money on that. So Anne says, why can't these Liberal councils train our out-of-work youngsters hairdressing, flower arranging and balloon craft? Why are only illegal immigrants eligible for free skills training? That's what she says.
Well, please do keep your views coming in. We want to hear from you all the way through the show. Now, we are joined by our paper reviewers. We've got Scarlett here, we've got Aman here. We really want to get into really interesting stuff in the papers this morning. Aman, I think I'm going to start with you on this chicken box vaccine plea. So the problem is that childhood vaccinations have just nosedived in this country.
They have indeed, and a lot of it is to do with a lot of the newer migrant population as well, who are not taking up some of the vaccines for children that are on offer. Certainly the MMR jab, which includes the measles. But this new initiative by the government is to push 500,000 children to have the chickenpox vaccine via the NHS, which certainly until now was not available for them. But my point of view, I think it should be a little bit about common sense. Roughly about 25 people die a year in the UK from fatal chickenpox. I think surely this should be about common sense to help those who are immunosuppressed or who haven't had perhaps chickenpox as a child, for them to have it rather than en masse for 500,000 children. I think is bonkers.
Well, chickenpox can be quite deadly for some people, especially in later life, especially as an adult. Chickenpox
certainly if you haven't had it as a child, yes.
So anything to stop these things spreading, and sometimes they can mutate and things, so I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
I mean, I think it's better to have chickenpox than to have the vaccine because, as you say, it's basically not deadly. However, as you know, having had chickenpox later in life, it is awful.
It is.
Really, really awful.
You had chickenpox later in life?
I did, yes. So I didn't have chickenpox as a child. So I caught it from my daughter when she was 10. And it was dreadful. It was seriously...
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So actually the vaccine, I think, should be later for people
who haven't had it.
Who haven't had it.
Yeah.
But much more important is the MMR, the measles, mumps and rubella vaccine that people are not taking up. Partly, I mean, you say it's immigrants, but it's also conspiracy theories. It's this whole thing of that there's, this is the deep state out to get you. Actually, I mean, I worked for an organisation since that dealt with the children of rubella, of mothers who'd contracted German measles during pregnancy. And the stories were awful. I mean, really, really awful. I mean, we're talking deaf, we're talking blind. We're really. So if a mum gets rubella during her pregnancy, the odds are very, very good that she's going to give birth to a severely disabled child. So I think that is the most important. Measles, we're saving children's lives, so that's great.
But can I just come back to you on the idea of the chickenpox there? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it can be quite deadly for some people. And if you were that one in 25 or that one person, that's not great, is it?
No.
And you did say that you're better off getting. You always would say rather get the disease rather than take the vaccine. There are many diseases where you don't really want to get.
No, I said chickenpox.
So you mean specifically?
Very specifically chickenpox.
So I was thinking about Ebola and all the others.
We need to knock out rubella completely, and you can with good vaccines. It's like we were knocking out polio, and then people stopped taking the polio
exactly.
vaccine.
But this is the problem. I mean, the rate has gone down so much that we are nowhere near at herd immunity level. It's gone down to 83% from 95%. What do you do about that? Is it just a case of a big public health campaign, or has the time come to mandate vaccines for parents? I think lots of us will be cringing a little bit at that.
I think it's about education, and it's about convincing people. I would argue, from a lot of people that have come from cultures which traditionally have looked at the polio vaccine. For example, I mean, let's compare, for example, India eliminated polio in 2014. billion and a half people. But next door in Pakistan is still prevalent, even in Afghanistan. And those are cultural attitudes towards vaccines, certainly the polio vaccine. And they've been imported into the UK by the same people.
I'd mandate it for people coming here so example, if you're going to Ghana, you'll need this, that and the other, yellow fever, and then they'll let you in. I would probably mandate it. Hold on. I would mandate it for people who want to come to this country.
But not for people who were born in this country.
But if you're coming to this country, especially from Afghanistan or wherever, there'll be mandatory vaccines of those things that we have managed to wipe out in this country, and to me that makes sense.
Yeah, completely.
Well, we haven't
what would you do?
Well, I think we haven't managed to wipe out measles, mumps, rubella.
But certainly for people coming into this country.
But there is a problem with people who are born and raised in this country not getting their children vaccinated either. And I'm really interested to see what our viewers make of this. Should this be mandated? I think it makes us all shiver a bit, the idea.
I wouldn't mandate it in this country.
But also, I mean, I used to work for the cancer screening people and for breast screening. And actually, what we did was we did different videos. So white middle-class women were getting their mammograms, but actually a lot of ethnic minority women weren't. So we specifically didn't, and that's what you did.
Perhaps that's a clever part of the strategy. I think we should just quickly move on here.
But can I just say, but we do need to say no. But I say I wouldn't mandate that in this country.
Education.
But I would make sure people who come here do
I think that's something that the whole country
we
all agree on.
Right. Let's see. Where should we go to next? Should we talk about Sir Rod and Maud Stewart slam Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davies?
I mean, this is a hilarious story. Ed Davies snubbing Donald Trump. I wonder how many Americans have really heard of Ed Davies at all.
Well, I would ask how many Britons have heard of Ed Davies. I mean, didn't we see a recent poll that said only 37% of respondents could identify Sir Ed Davies from his picture, and he's been the Liberal Democrat leader for 5 years. I mean, this is like Sir Ed Dreary,
But Scarlett, I mean, maybe there are lots of British people who don't like Donald Trump. Maybe there does need to be one political leader who. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, he said he thought long and hard about it, and it's the only thing that he can do. And the last time Donald Trump came, quite a lot of people refused to go to dinner with him. So, including Jeremy Corbyn, who was unfortunately at the time leader of the Labour Party. But actually, I mean, so it makes no difference. But as you say, there is a large proportion, a large number of people who really cannot stand Donald Trump, who do not think he should be there, and that's what he's saying. But also, he's saying it's about Gaza because, quite reasonably, he says, Donald Trump is the one person who could stop that war now, and is doing nothing.
But you see, if you are in a position, like Ed Davies, I mean, was he even invited to this banquet? But if you're going to snub that, aren't you wiser to go in and try and talk and be part of it?
I would ask.
He wasn't invited, I don't even think.
Why on earth is he talking about Gaza? Why isn't he talking about the US-UK special relationship? Why isn't he talking about how we strengthen our defence relationship? Why isn't he talking how we strengthen our trade with the US?
He's been watching too much of the BBC.
Well, probably reading too much of the Guardian.
Well, I mean, we do have a famine in Gaza. We do have...
But it's not our problem. It is not our problem.
Well, actually, it's a world problem, just like Ukraine is a world problem.
No, it's not a world problem.
It is a world.
It's not.
Well,
it really isn't. It's a Middle East problem. Let them sort it out.
No. We cannot say 60,000, 70,000 people, many of whom are women and children, have been killed, and it's not our problem.
You're just repeating Hamas.
I am not repeating Hamas. I'm repeating UN.
You trust the UN?
Let's pause this conversation here. We can pick it up after the next segment of the show. I'm sure we all have lots to say. I'm not quite sure how a conversation about Ed Davies and Donald Trump turned into a row about Gaza, but
that is why he's not going.
That's because that's all Ed Davies ever talks about.
Thank you, Scarlett and Martin. It was really, really great to hear from you both, and we'll see you again soon. But for now, the Conservative Party are calling for an investigation into Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner after she's been accused of avoiding £40,000 in stamp duty when buying a second home.
Well, today we're asking, are Labour a bunch of hypocrites? We'll be debating that.
But first, here are your news headlines from Bethany Elsey.
Good morning. The headlines from the GB Newsroom. Several councils are considering legal action to stop hotels being used to house asylum seekers, despite a court overturning an injunction on the Bell Hotel in Epping yesterday. The Conservatives are calling for an investigation into the Deputy Prime Minister's tax affairs after she reportedly saved £40,000 in stamp duty when buying her second home. A US court has ruled most of Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal, but is allowing them to remain in place for now. At least one person has been killed and dozens injured, including children, in what Ukraine's president is describing as a massive attack by Russia. And the president of Palestine and 80 other officials have had their US visas revoked, meaning they can no longer attend the UN Assembly meeting in New York next month. Those are the headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Bethany. Still to come, the Tories are calling for an investigation into Angela Rayner after she's been accused of avoiding £40,000 in stamp duty when buying a second home.
Are Labour a bunch of hypocrites? We'll be debating that next.
This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's set to be a fine start to the weekend, but turning more unsettled as we go through. Often wet and windy today, and then further blustery showers as we head into Sunday. But yes, it should be a mostly bright and dry start to the day, particularly across eastern parts of the country, soon being replaced by clouds spilling in from the west. Also some quite heavy downpours, at first across Northern Ireland and then pushing its way eastwards across the rest of the country. These downpours could turn heavy at times. Perhaps we'll even see some hail and thunder, and also some very strong gusty winds, particularly around exposed western coasts. Highs reaching around 23 degrees Celsius across parts of East Anglia, but many western areas it's going to feel a lot cooler and fresher under the cloud and rain. Low pressure will continue to swirl around across the northwest of the country, swinging in further bands of rain across parts of Scotland, some quite heavy and gusty downpours at times. Persistent outbreaks of rain eventually clearing Northern Ireland, but once again plenty of blustery showers following on behind. And across the rest of England and Wales, it is going to be a very wet end to the day. Quite strong winds continuing, particularly if you do catch any of those heavier downpours. Now, the persistent outbreaks of rain will eventually continue to push their way eastwards, clearing to a much drier night as we head through Saturday and into Sunday. Still plenty of showers feeding through, and it's still set to be rather breezy. But under the clearest skies, it should be a little fresher than what we've had of late. Lows reaching around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius. Nevertheless, though, on the beginning of Sunday, it is going to be very breezy, if not quite gusty at times, particularly around coasts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland and northwest England. And gradually through the course of the day, we'll see more showers feeding through, skirting their way eastwards. Once again, could turn heavy with some hail and thunder. More persistent and heavy outbreaks of rain pushing into Northern Ireland later on through the day. So a mix of sunny spells and showers, fairly similar temperatures, highs reaching around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Saturday Morning Live with Olivia and Nana.
Good morning to you. Right, let's see what you've been saying. gbnews.com/yoursay. Olivia, what have you got for me?
Well,
I
we've
jumped
got
in.
Robert Glanville here saying, I can see a range of new diseases coming to this country, especially ones we have managed to eradicate, and it'll all be down to our visitors from across the channel. Now, I don't think that is completely fair. When you actually look into the statistics, there's a lot of people who were born and raised in the UK who are not vaccinating their children from diseases which have almost been eradicated. So I'd really like to hear what our viewers think about that. There are some people pushing for mandatory vaccines. I think that makes us shiver, really, as a country of libertarians, but let us know what you think.
But it's not really. I mean, like, if you are going to another country, so if I'm going to Ghana, they will literally mandate that I have certain vaccines, otherwise they won't let me in. Now, I don't think that's wrong, especially when someone's coming from the outside into this country. I know everyone will say, oh, but we have our own freedoms. And, oh, Nanny, what you said over COVID. Yeah, you know, I have changed my stance on that in time. But on this particular matter, I think absolutely that if there are diseases from other countries and so on and so forth, it is imperative, in order to protect the British public from things that we have kind of eradicated, that those people should be vaccinated against us. And they are the vaccines that have been going on, that are tried and tested over many, many years. And in my view, most of those are safe.
It's a really interesting point of view, and be really interesting. It obviously gets people talking. This has got us talking this morning, so I'd love to hear what you think.
But forget the COVID vaccine. Don't put that in it, please. I don't want to hear about that.
Think of that COVID vaccine. But we are going to be talking this morning about, are Labour a bunch of hypocrites? This is a story which is just not going away for Angela Rayner, because the Conservatives are now calling for an investigation into the Deputy Prime Minister after she's been accused of avoiding £40,000 in stamp duty when buying a second home.
Yes, Angela Rayner, who I've never forgot after that interview with Trevor Phillips, where she made a complete embarrassment of herself, where she really couldn't work out the laws of supply and demand. But Angela Rayner has told tax authorities that her £800,000 seaside apartment, a lot of money for an apartment in East Sussex, was her main place of residence to avoid paying extra tax.
But is this fair from our Housing Secretary? And are Labour a bunch of hypocrites? Now, it's quite a complicated story, so I'm just going to outline the facts very quickly first before we get into the debate. And I'm going to have to look at notes, even as a political correspondent here. So she's claiming that her Manchester house is her main home to avoid paying higher council tax on her London flat. But just before she bought that apartment in Brighton, she removed her name from the deeds of her Manchester house in order to avoid high stamp duty on her Brighton flat. So basically what she's doing is moving around her main residency in order to avoid tax. I should say up front, it is all totally legal, but is it ethical? And to debate this, we're joined now by political journalist and commentator Suzanne Evans and political commentator Jonathan Lee. Now, Jonathan, you're on Angela Rayner's side here. Of course it's all legal. Surely it's deeply unethical.
It's Jonathan List for a start, Olivia. That's fine. Hello. Welcome to the show. I'm not here to sort of defend Angela Rayner per se. I'm here to say that I don't think it's hypocritical what she's done. Everything that she's done has been legal. She pays the council tax premium on that second place in Hove, which might be the first place. We don't actually know how much time she spends in Manchester, so it's perfectly legitimate that it could be one of her residences. It's clearly in her constituency. And in general, I think that we do need to actually look at reforming these taxes as well. Labour itself is looking at reforming council tax, which in many ways is a very, very unfair tax. And I think a lot of people are talking about reforming stamp duty as well, which often deters people from buying homes. So I don't think it's hypocritical. I think the main hypocrisy actually is the media, which obsesses over Angela Rayner more than any other politician, certainly more than any male reform politician would ever have in terms of scrutiny. If this is a male reform MP who had a very complicated living situation, he might be in government and he needed a grace and favour, a property in London, as Angela Rayner as Deputy Prime Minister is entitled to, no one would be talking about it in any way.
Oh, you can't compare apples and pears. What are you talking about? He gets more scrutiny than she, and blah, blah, blah. That's not true. And Angela Rayner deserves scrutiny because she's the Housing Secretary, and she's talking about housing shortage. Suzanne Evans.
Well, I remember when Paul Nuttall was leader of UKIP, and he was absolutely taken to task for registering as his address a house in Stoke-on-Trent, which it was alleged he didn't live in. And there was all hell to pay. So I'm afraid, Jonathan, that argument's complete nonsense. I have to say, I think it's a very interesting defence of Angela Rayner to say she probably spends more time at her Sussex seaside holiday home than she does in her constituency. So moving along, let's put that one to one side. I mean, the question we're talking about today is this Labour government hypocritical? Well, my goodness, not only are they hypocritical, it seems to be policy. What's happened with Angela Rayner is absolutely indefensible. It might be legal, but it is certainly not ethical. And let's just have a look at what she's said and done in the past. Her own housing department has complained about second home owners pricing other people, local people, out of the housing market. She herself has hit out repeatedly at tax dodgers, by which she defines tax avoidance, not tax evasion, which is illegal, but tax avoidance, which is perfectly legal.
I think we should just...
Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has done exactly the same.
Just to cut in here on Angela Rayner, I mean, she is still paying very, very high council tax on that second home in Brighton. To be fair to her, she is paying that double council tax. She is paying all the taxes she should be paying. Wouldn't we all, if we were in that position, try and not pay the maximum amount of tax? Isn't it fair enough that Angela Rayner, working class woman, done good, she's paying her taxes, she's not breaking any laws? What's the problem?
What's the fact she's working class got to do with it? She's done well for herself. Fantastic. You know, but the fact is this Labour government has basically said that people shouldn't be buying second homes and they shouldn't be avoiding tax. Perfectly.
When did they ever say that people shouldn't buy second homes?
They also, can I just say, let's not forget, Angela Rayner personally also criticised the previous Conservative government from cutting the temporarily cutting the rate of stamp duty during COVID times. So she's a complete hypocrite. Absolutely no doubt.
Suzanne, when has Labour ever said that you shouldn't buy a second home? All MPs need second homes unless they have London constituencies. And Angela Rayner is a Deputy Prime Minister, so clearly she needs a property in London that is an official residence.
Let me quote Angela Rayner's own speech at party conference. She said, when hitting out at the Tories, it's one rule for them and another for us. And here she is, one rule for them, another for us. It's not just her second home, is it?
What
it's
rule?
The fact that she keeps flipping the owners of her home, and it's about her holiday home as well. I've got no objection to anyone having a holiday home. I used to have a holiday home. I'm not arguing about that. What I'm arguing about is the hypocrisy. And that's the issue at this debate here. It's hypocrisy all the way for this Labour government. David Lammy...
I don't think Labour has ever said that MPs cannot have second homes.
David Lammy in opposition slammed Boris Johnson for using a private jet.
Sorry,
He racked up £1 million of taxpayers' money using private jets in the first 3 months of Labour's time in office. Look at the migrant hotels. They say they're going to shut the migrant hotels.
Why are we talking about...
When a council tries to shut them...
Let Jonathan respond. Let Jonathan respond.
This is silly. I criticise Labour on a range of issues all the time. I think that there are many, many things to criticise Labour about, and I criticise them on this channel. I just don't happen to think that this is high on the list. I'm sorry.
Jonathan, just to pick up on that, I mean, yes, of course, MPs have to have second homes because they work in London, they work in their constituencies. Angela Rayner has an apartment that she has use of in London. She has her home in her constituency. This is essentially a third home that we're talking about in Brighton. And yes, it's true that the Labour government has not said they don't want people to have second homes. But can't you argue that a local family in Hove, perhaps raising children who want to contribute to the community, send their children to the local school, should have that apartment in Hove, rather than Angela Rayner, who will just be visiting for the odd drinks at the weekend?
Olivia, that's the most socialist thing I've ever heard you say. You're saying that there should be some housing to be redistributed among people.
Well, Angela Rayner is a socialist. Angela Rayner is a socialist.
I'm not here to sit in judgment on someone's personal circumstances that I actually don't have any information about. I am not privy to how much time Angela Rayner spends in different cities with her family or anything of the sort. I'm saying that she has done nothing wrong legally. If I was Angela, if I was in her position, I might take different decisions. I probably wouldn't buy a house in Hove, but I'm quite happy living in London, as I always have. So, look, she's done nothing wrong legally. If she's if people have very, very complicated personal circumstances, and I just don't see the need to judge them unless they've done something flagrantly
We're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. That was a fantastic debate, lovely, fiery stuff. Fascinating to see what our viewers have to think of that. Now, a spokesperson for Miss Rayner has said the Deputy Prime Minister paid the correct duty owned on the property entirely properly and in line with all relevant requirements. Any suggestion otherwise is entirely without basis.
Right, well, still to come, we'll be joined by nutritionist and author of the Binge Freedom Method, Marcel Rose, to discuss pharmacies discounting weight loss drugs. But first,
if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Storm Augustin is easing across northern parts of Europe, bringing mostly settled conditions, though we can't rule out some showers at times. For example, across northwest Portugal, northern parts of Spain and western parts of France, we just have some outbreaks of rain pushing through here. But otherwise, as we move our way eastwards across the Mediterranean, mostly high pressure dominating, so plenty of sunshine to go around. Though as we head into next week, there's a chance we could just start to see some thundery showers push into parts of Italy, but temperatures mostly remaining in the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 52 minutes after 10 o'clock. Pharmacies in the UK have said that they will discount the price of weight loss drugs when a price rise comes into force next week.
And with up to 1.5 million people in Britain taking these drugs, is this progress or will it create problems?
Well, joining us now is nutritionist and author of The Binge Freedom Method, Marcel Rose. Marcel, so what are your thoughts on this? Are these people taking these fat jabs, have they been a bit... just taking the quick route? Is it out of order? Is it right to reduce the price?
I think it will be a welcome thing for many people who have accessed these drugs privately to suddenly see a massive price hike to up to £330. And now they're going to be approximately £250 a month. It's still a huge amount of money. You asked, are they taking the quick fix? Is it right? I think many people are desperate to do what they can, and I understand why people are drawn to these medications. I do think there's other ways, and I think it's really important that people also address their relationship with food and all the issues that surround that, as well as, or instead of just going straight for the weight loss drugs, because there are, unfortunately, moderate to severe side effects for some people, and there are the possibilities of nutritional deficiencies if things aren't, if you're not putting in place those important...
All right, Marcel, we are running out of time. We will talk more, but that's Marcel Rose. Thank you.
Yes, we'll talk more about that soon, but we've got lots more to come on Saturday Morning Live today. Is Trump's health anything to worry about? And will a royal reconciliation ever happen? After the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather, and a bit of an unsettled weekend to come. We've got low pressure moving in from the Atlantic. We're going to see rain sweeping its way eastwards through the day today and turning windy. This is the area of low pressure which is starting to move in. It's associated weather fronts bringing cloud and outbreaks of rain this morning across western areas. So a wet start to the day here, but across eastern areas, sunshine holding on for longer. Some glimmers of brightness as we move through into the afternoon, though clouding over. The rain continuing across western parts, the wind starting to pick up, gusts of 25-30 miles an hour or so, perhaps locally 40 around the coast. So cool here, temperatures in the around 19 to 21 Celsius, but 22 to 24 perhaps in any sunshine holding on across the far east. This band of rain continues to slowly push eastwards as we go through this evening, holding on to some dry weather in the far northeast of Scotland, Orkney and Shetland there, not seeing rain till later, but a wet evening across Scotland, brighter for Northern Ireland with showers, much of England seeing the cloud and the rain push its way eastwards with some brighter skies following for Wales and the West Country with some heavy showers. The wind staying strong as we move through into the early hours as the rain slowly pushes away. Blustery showers moving in, gales developing around some Irish Sea coast as well. And so for everyone overnight, a bit of a blustery night, but it should hold temperatures up around 12 to 14 Celsius as a result. And it means an unsettled start to Sunday. Low pressure in charge. The centre of the low just sat to the northwest of the UK. Showers quite frequent across western areas, but plenty of sunny spells, particularly across central and eastern areas through the day, but the showers becoming more widespread into the afternoon. Some longer spells of rain possible for Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland too, and remaining quite cool and windy. Highs around 22 or 23 towards southeast England.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel. Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Good morning. It is 11 o'clock on Saturday. It's the 30th of August. We're live across the UK. This is Saturday Morning Live. Now, a fresh wave of protests are expected across this weekend as judges overturn the High Court's order to clear asylum seekers from Epping Bells Hotel. We'll be keeping you updated as news develops.
And the Conservative Party is calling for an investigation into Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner as she's been accused of avoiding £40,000 in stamp duty when buying a second home. Are Labour a bunch of hypocrites? Keep your views coming in.
And stateside, the US court rules that many of President Trump's global tariffs are illegal. I don't think he cares. Could this upend America's foreign policy agenda? And why has the president cancelled his engagements this weekend? Washington editor for The Times, Katie Bowles, will join us live from Washington, D.C.
And Prince Harry is set to meet King Charles when he returns to the UK next week, but Prince William rejects the reunion. Can a royal reconciliation between the brothers ever be on the cards? We'll also be remembering Princess Diana, as tomorrow marks 28 years since her death.
And the cost of weight loss jabs will be discounted in the UK pharmacies when a price hike comes into force next week. Is this progress, or will it create problems? Let us know what you think.
The biggest stories, boldest opinions and liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Olivia Utley.
And I'm Nana Akweer. Your weekend starts here. Olivia, what do you think about these weight loss jabs?
Well, gosh, I really don't know. I mean, I suppose if people desperately need to lose weight, then maybe it's the best option. What about you?
I'm concerned about the effects it might have on the body as a whole. So a lot of people complaining about things like it affecting the pancreas and things like that, getting pancreatitis. And I'm just looking at it thinking, yeah, there's never really a quick fix. That always comes with some sort of kickback. And well, I suppose in time we'll find out what that might be.
Better thought through opinion from Nana there. So don't forget, we want to hear from you. We'd love to hear what you think about that and everything else we've been talking about. Send in your views and comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say.
But first, let's get your latest news with Bethany Elsey.
Thank you both. Good morning. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB Newsroom. Several councils are considering legal action to try and stop hotels being used to house asylum seekers. It's after the Court of Appeal overturned an injunction that would have prevented nearly 140 migrants remaining at the Bell Hotel in Epping. The decision has reignited anger among local residents, and protests were held there last night, which saw 3 people arrested. Former Home Office Minister Tom Pursglove says the government is undoing all of the progress of the Conservative Party.
They've truly lost the public on this, and this is a terrible situation to be in, and I find this particularly frustrating because I was the minister, along with James Cleverly, that presided over closing the Bell Hotel in Epping, and what this government has done is squandered all the progress that we made. We'd managed to close 188 hotels. We'd pivoted towards larger sites. We'd got a deterrent in place that needed to happen, of course. We needed to get flights off the ground. But things were moving in the right direction, and they've really squandered all of that.
The Conservatives are calling for an investigation into the Deputy Prime Minister's tax affairs. The Telegraph is reporting Angela Rayner saved £40,000 in stamp duty when buying her new seaside flat in East Sussex by telling tax authorities it was her main home. But it's also understood she told Thameside Council her constituency house in Greater Manchester remains her primary residence for council tax purposes. Although the changes are entirely legal, the Conservative Party chairman Kevin Hollinrake has written to the Independent Standards Advisor claiming inappropriate tax avoidance. The US Court of Appeal has ruled that most of Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal. It says the president was not legally allowed to declare national emergencies and impose taxes on almost every country. Tariffs have been a pillar of Mr. Trump's second term in office, but they have increased volatility in financial markets. The court is allowing the tariffs to remain in place until mid-October to give the Trump administration a chance to appeal to the Supreme Court. At least one person has been killed and dozens injured, including children, in what Ukraine's president is describing as a massive attack. Russia launched 540 drones and dozens of missiles overnight that hit residential and retail areas in the southeastern city of Zaporizhia. Volodymyr Zelensky says it's clear Russia is disregarding diplomacy and is calling on real action from the US and Europe to end the war. Palestine's president and 80 other officials have had their US visas revoked. It means they can no longer attend the United Nations Assembly meeting in New York next month. Several US allies, including France, Malta and Australia, have announced plans to recognise Palestine as a state at the meeting. The State Department claims it's acting in the interests of national security. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Bethany, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Olivia Utley and Nana Akweer.
Yes, good morning to you.
The government has won its appeal to keep almost 140 migrants at the Bell Hotel in Epping.
Senior judges overturned an earlier order to move the men out by mid-September, saying the first ruling was seriously flawed.
Therefore, we grant permission to appeal both to Somani and to the Home Secretary against the grant of the interim injunction. We allow the appeals and we set aside the injunction imposed on 19 August 2025.
But Border Security Minister Dame Angela Eagle says the government remains committed to ending the use of migrant hotels.
Well, nobody wants to close the Bell Hotel and all other asylum hotels more than me, and we have pledged that we are going to do that by the end of the Parliament. Today's judgment allows us to do it in a planned and managed way so that we can get the system running and make sure that we can exit hotels for once and for all.
So, with protests set to take place over the weekend, is this a win for the Home Office? Well, joining us now is in the studio is former Labour advisor Matthew Talbot. Matthew, does the verdict surprise you at all?
I didn't know what to expect, to be truthful. It's not my area of expertise, that element of law. I had a feeling that the appeal may be upheld. I still think this could go further, and the Supreme Court may wish to... Olivia's laptop's got something to say about it, clearly.
What that came from?
No, I think the council could win at the Supreme Court, depending on what route they wish to take. Ultimately, the judge ruled yesterday on essentially a planning issue, which did seem odd because it is essentially being used as apartments, really, and long-term living, whether the government thinks so or not. This isn't, a temporary measure. It's supposed to be a temporary measure. It isn't a temporary measure.
Yes, because, of course, the council brought forward the court case in the first place, claiming that the hotel had changed its use without due planning permission. Now, the judge has overturned that. That judge is Lord Justice David Bean. He does have long links with the Labour Party, and some people are suggesting that, actually, his judgment was biased. What do you make of that?
I think that's silly. I think...
Well, why?
You said yourself that the judgment was you don't believe that the hotel does have a right to house migrants because they have changed it.
But I am not a qualified solicitor or judge in the way that Justice Bean is. I think ultimately, if you start questioning the independence of the judiciary, that's a very dangerous path to be
But it's
trod in.
important to question it, really, because, I mean, he was part of the... He chaired a very left-leaning Fabian society, and do you know what I mean? People are looking at this thinking, well, hold on a minute, how neutral were the judges on that panel to come up with such an incredible and extraordinary verdict? Or...
I think it makes me smile when people call the Fabians left-wing. They're not left-wing, particularly within the Labour Party hierarchy.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, maybe in the grander scale of the Overton window, maybe, but they're certainly
But it is linked with the Labour Party.
Yeah, no, and obviously, if you've been a member for 28 years, questions will be asked. But I think I'm a believer that, listen, if I went and retrained tomorrow, I would go and represent people because it's the right thing to do, not because my political morals tell me otherwise. His interpretation of the law may be based in a bias that he's not realised, potentially, but ultimately, these are the laws that politicians have created, and he operates within the parameters of those laws.
And that gets us on to the main question, really. I mean, is this a win for the government? In a technical sense, of course, it is, but the political fallout is quite awkward for Labour, isn't it?
This is the worst possible optics at the worst possible moment for this government. My hope, actually, was when the original complaint was upheld and that there was going to have to be essentially an early evacuation of the Bell Hotel, that it meant the government would get its act into gear and go, right, we need to do some long-term planning. I found it deeply disappointing that we've gone into government without a long-term plan and have essentially carried on a continuation of a failed asylum policy of just going, we'll put them in the hotels and we'll worry about it later. I think maybe now there are questions to be asked over maybe not sending people to Rwanda, but why scrap the scheme before you've got one up and ready yourself? I don't think it would have worked, truth be told. I can see the argument for it.
But you could have modified it. It could have been an option because now President Trump is looking at it and other countries looked at it as soon as we left it behind, and we paid a fortune to set it up. So we've just handed over the money, set it up for another country or another, somebody else, another government to take over.
Well, I think you could have negotiated with a different country if Rwanda was unpalatable. I think, unfortunately, what Labour has done is proffered towards the members and gone, we are the moralistic high ground people.
Which is ironic,
Rwanda
really.
is awful, and we're not going to do that. To say things in opposition, which are essentially quite populist, along with the sort of tax promises that are going to have to slowly unravel over the next month or so, is sort of attacking populism with populism, and I don't think that's the way forward.
Do you think all of this comes down to Keir Starmer himself? And of course, Keir Starmer appealed to the general public before the election. He talked the hard talk about dealing with this immigration problem. But at his heart, Keir Starmer was an immigration lawyer. He's a human rights lawyer. He's legalistic to his very core. And if dealing with the immigration problem means leaving the ECHR, is that something the Prime Minister will just never do? Is that the crux of the problem here?
I don't think he'll leave it, but also we have to remember that the judgment yesterday didn't mention the ECHR once.
No, they used the ECHR, didn't they?
No, they didn't. This is the problem. So this is where Nigel Farage and others are putting out information to say the ECHR has been used against the British people. You tell me where the judge mentioned the ECHR yesterday. It was on a planning issue.
Convention.
Well, the Refugee Convention poses its own issues, but we could leave the ECHR tomorrow. The Refugee Convention will take its place, but also we have statutory laws in this country under things like the Human Rights Act, which mean the boats will continue to come, and unfortunately, whatever government is in has a legal requirement to house people
and
when they come.
And I think that is a really important point that's worth making. When Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan got overturned in the Supreme Court, it was a bit about the ECHR, but it was all about that kind of whole architecture of human rights laws. Nigel Farage, if he comes into power, will have a lot of ripping up laws to do. Do you think it's likely that he will come into power now? Reform seems to be leading with an enormous poll lead at the moment as a snap result of this judgment.
Yeah, I always said on election night, this is the best it will get for the Labour Party. Hard times are ahead. And I always felt it would be between Keir Starmer, if he survives, and Nigel Farage. I think the problem is he's going to face many of the same issues the Labour Party have got, not just with immigration, but with the economic issues that are facing the country. And I think whoever is in charge, we are in for a very painful and hard decade, mostly because Labour backbenchers didn't want to give in on things like welfare and try and find money in cuts because it's unpalatable, and because Nigel Farage's sort of almost gunboat diplomacy won't play well on the international stage and will leave us with continued issues. So I think whoever's in charge, I think Reform are in a great position. There's a strong possibility that they will form a majority. I think they'll fall just short, but I think the Conservatives will wish to remain relevant and will no doubt do them a favour. Whether that lasts longer than a year or two, who knows? But it's going to be a long old decade. I'm sorry to tell people. I feel very pessimistic about it all.
Well, you know what? On that bombshell, do you not think that perhaps the Labour Party are, you know, they spent 14 years in opposition. Do you not think perhaps they could have had some sort of plans as to how they would deal with the situation? It sounds like they were just there having a jolly for 14 years.
I don't think it was a jolly. It was miserable at times, don't get me wrong.
If you sat there for 14 years and you think that everything's gone to hell in a handcart, you must have some ideas as to how you'll pull it together and make it better. And so far, all we've had is Border Force Command Control, which they couldn't find anybody to head up for at least the first 9 months. And what has this Command Control? Patrick Christie's has done more than any Border Force Command Control.
Yeah, no, listen, it's been weak, it's been poorly planned, and, you know,
rubbish.
I think we should look at other... I've always said we should look at other aspects like offshore processing, because it's not about deporting people when they get here, it's stopping people coming in the first place. I think that's what riles people. When it comes to the lack of preparedness, there was always a plan to win the election, there was never a plan to govern. And I think what you'll find, you can see that in the winter fuel decision. What anyone will tell you that has been in government will tell you, if you don't have political priorities, the civil service will impose their political priorities on you. That's exactly what happened with the winter fuel and no doubt other things. It was also a big concern of mine in opposition that we were very reactive and not proactive with our communications, with our policy planning. But you look at the people around Keir Starmer, these people were essentially employed to fight a factional warfare within the Labour Party and kill off the left, not really to win an election. No one thought we would win in 5 years. Liz Truss did us a huge favour.
They're useless. They're useless.
Pretty damning judgment there from former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett. Thank you very much for that, Matthew.
Oh, God, they're all awful, aren't they? David Lammy, Ed Miliband. Who else have we got? Yvette Cooper. They haven't got a clue. They haven't
Not putting me in there as well, are you, Nana?
Well, no, because at least you're speaking sense. There's some sense coming out of your mouth, thank God.
I think lots of people would say exactly the same about the Conservatives.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying they're good as well. They are terrible too. So, you know, what are we left with? What do you think? Anyway, gbnews.com/your say, your thoughts.
Well, with Parliament set to return on Monday, famous wedding venue Gretna Green is calling on the government to bring in a marriage czar.
Yes, and I was to say thank you to Matthew Torbett. Sorry about that, didn't thank you. Now get out. Yes, as marriage is declining at a rate of around 2.5% to 3% a year, it could be their job to make it easier for Brits to tie the knot.
Our reporter Sophie Reaper has the story.
1, 2, 3. The iconic Gretna Green. For over 270 years, couples have travelled here to be wed. What started in 1754 as a way for under-18s to marry without parental consent has now become a hotspot for lovebirds to say I do. Guys, you've just gotten married here at Gretna Green. How are you feeling?
Amazing, really, really good. Happy that we've come and celebrated here.
We didn't want anything big, nothing extreme, and it was simple, easy to do.
David and Jenny now have their honeymoon and the rest of their lives to look forward to. But, as is the story for most modern couples, getting married wasn't just about love.
When you're married, everything's like legal-wise is just so much more simpler rather than having to worry about lawyers and stuff like that later on.
To have the same last name as the kids as well is quite a big thing for me.
In England, Scotland and Wales, the laws around marriage are complex and engulfed in red tape. To make things worse, the average cost of a wedding is now over £23,000. And so, as Parliament prepares to return on Monday, Gretna Green is calling on the government to appoint a dedicated marriage czar.
We believe marriage is struggling not because love is dead, it's because the system is broken. People don't seem to see marriage as an important thing. It provides great stability. Marriage matters. There's economic benefits, there's social benefits, and the government have got to show some leadership. And we're calling for a czar because we want someone to be the voice of marriage in this country.
Aside from the cost, Gretna Green also says a marriage czar would work to make things easier for Brits to tie the knot.
It's actually easier to get a passport and quicker to get a passport. It's actually easier to get divorced, which is actually perverse. But in America, it takes 1 and 3 days. Right, in Denmark, it takes 5 days. And Germany, which is a very conservative country, takes 10 days. So why does it take 28 days to get married in Britain?
Every year, around 4,000 newlyweds are married at Gretna Green. But with a change in the law, it seems that many more, both here and across the UK, could be saying I do. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Ah, thank you, Sophie. I'm getting married soon. I don't know when, don't know where. But
He's just got engaged and hasn't bothered to plan the wedding.
I just really like the ring.
I bought my dress within 3 days.
No.
Engaged, genuinely.
Did you?
I'd already searched it online.
But how long have you been together for?
Oh, 8 years by the time we got engaged.
So you kind of knew that you
So
were
I knew. Well, I hoped.
And did he get you a decent ring as you were in it?
He did.
Oh, he did. Well,
And yours is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's very nice. I looked at it and went, yeah, all right.
Yeah, go on, man, I'll marry him.
I mean, if I had to squint to look at it, it would have been a problem. But yeah, I haven't done any further planning than that. But yeah.
So cool, so laid back. Not like me
nice
at all. Well, thank you very much, Sophie. It's still to come. The US court rules that many of President Trump's global tariffs are illegal. And why has the president cancelled his engagements?
I don't think he cares about that, though, does he? He'll just do what he wants. But next, find out why a man decided to torch a cafe. We'll be discussing that and more stories in the paper review. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Saturday Morning Live with Olivia and Nana.
Yes, good morning to you. Right, let's see what you've been saying. I've got a little one here from Scamps. They say, a marriage Tsar, is it April the 1st? You can just imagine it. There would have to be DEI training, ensuring the correct pronouns and all the other woke nonsense that these so-called Tsars come up with to justify their six-figure salaries. Of course, there are no other important issues that need resolving in this country at the moment. Yes, good point. Very true indeed.
I rather like, well, I know what you mean about Tsars there, but I rather like the idea of trying to boost marriage rates.
I don't know, not so much. I mean, it's a contract, isn't it? You want to get out of it sometimes. Mungo says, yes, Matthew is rational. I did say that about, because sometimes we have rabid lefties on it. Not looking anywhere in particular, but it's a good time to welcome on Scarlett Maguire and Alan Bogle.
A rational lefty.
Rational.
No,
I said rabid.
Let's start with you, Scarlett, because there's a story in the Times today, an exclusive story in the Times, saying that the Queen was a Remainer. Can you tell us more?
Yes. Well, what they say is it came out during the Brexit debates that she'd been incredibly rude about the EU to Nick Clegg. But Nick said this never happened and Michael Gove just leaked it and blah. But actually, apparently, she said, we shouldn't leave the EU, better the devil you know, she told a minister. Now, everything the Queen said is supposed to be totally secret. And George Osborne said about her that he could not believe how candid she was and how nothing ever got out. So much so that actually it is thought that when Tony Blair wrote his memoirs and talked about what the Queen said to him, he just took it from the TV series.
Really?
Well, the film, The Queen. Yes, well, because that's what it said. So people do keep her secrets to the grave. But it is thought she was a Remainer. But apparently David Cameron knew about this during the referendum, during the campaign, and decided not to use it.
But you can always make up stuff when people are dead because they can't answer back, can they? But what I think the point she was making, if this is true, is that she was frustrated with the EU. And I think if the EU had been more malleable and were prepared to listen and, you know, it wasn't so difficult to get one small thing through because you had 27 other nations to work with, or 26 other nations to work with, then maybe we would all still be in there. Aman?
Well, I think recollections may vary. Let's just say that.
I mean, a wonderful quote.
I mean, look, the late Queen was the sovereign of the United Kingdom. She was the monarch. Why wouldn't she want to take back control of sovereignty of her own kingdom?
Well, better the devil you know. I can sort of see that about the Queen, you know, because she's a little bit cautious in her mindset. She might find the EU really, really frustrating, but thought it was dangerous to get out of it. If David Cameron had gone the other way and chosen to use this in the campaign, do you think it would have made a difference?
I doubt it. I think most people wouldn't believe that because, let's be honest, the Queen was a real rock of this nation throughout her reign. I think she was very much, and I've said this before, you know, Britain was Elizabeth and Elizabeth was Britain. So I think, in fact, it would have done a lot of help to the Leave campaign on our side, because I think a lot of them would have been accused of dragging the late Queen's name into it.
That's a really good point, actually. People did not like it when the Queen
Michael Gove dragged the late Queen's name into it it by saying the opposite, right? So I think it would have been fair. I think David Cameron was right to leave her out, but I think she had already been labelled a Brexiteer quite wrongly. I mean,
And it left the palace in a really difficult position, didn't it? Because they couldn't come out and say, no, the Queen is not a Brexiteer, because then it would look like she was a Remainer. So it was an awkward position all round.
It was a terrible position. And actually, even in the referendum on Scottish independence, the Queen's position was very difficult. Now, one would say she's the Queen of the Union. Of course she wants the Union to stay. But actually she tried very, very hard to stay out of it.
And that was a real quality that the late Queen had. And of course, don't forget, I mean, the biggest thing that she had was listening to the will of the British people, and that's why so many people loved her.
Unlike the Remainers, who couldn't handle the answer of a democratic vote.
Actually, in the Times this morning, journalists say that if the Queen had been able to vote, she would have voted Remain. But that's not really the point anymore, is it? It's once the Brexit vote had gone through, I reckon the Queen would have said that we had to get on with it.
Exactly. She always had the best interest of Britain at heart.
All right, let's talk about the man with no sarnie sauce tortures a cafe. He sounds a bit like the Incredible Hulk, doesn't he?
Let's be really serious here.
I don't like that sauce.
I know. This was in Spain. Right?
This was in Spain,
This
by
was
the
in
way.
Spain,
Yeah.
right. This
Andalusia.
was a hot-headed Spaniard, southern Spain in Andalusia. And so Guy goes to a cafe, wants mayonnaise, no mayonnaise, loses his temper, as people do when you're very, very hungry, so you're hangry. He torches the cafe and burns him. And of course, as we all do, we get cross and burns himself. I mean, interestingly, I was in a restaurant, which I won't name, and was given what they call, I mean, this was a proper good restaurant, what they call the Caesar salad, which, was a...
Caesar salad can be very, very disappointing.
A few bits of lettuce. And I wrote and complained. And
Good
actually,
for you,
I got an answer today saying, I hope you will come back. We will take it.
Not torch the cafe.
I will not torch the cafe. But I was cross, actually. I do understand the man being
the difference between a British woman and a Spanish man. a cross little email to the manager instead of setting fire to the restaurant.
It's a cultural difference, isn't it? I mean, this is sort of one of the things. Out of Spain. But hey, let's be honest. I think we here in Britain, I think a very strongly worded letter is probably the equivalent of a Spaniard burning down a cafe.
Although, to be fair, this stuff, even in Spain, happens rarely.
Well, I went to a very, very nice posh hotel, one of the top ones in this country that begins with an R, and I had a meal, and I was violently sick afterwards.
Did you write a letter?
No. I did write a letter, and they haven't even replied. And the thing is, I'd just bought my brand new car, my RR, I won't say anymore, and I was driving along, and I was like, I am not going to be sick in this car. I opened the door, I had to quickly take a corner stop, and I just opened the door and just went... from this terrible...
Actually,
I should have gone back.
I got food poisoning from a good restaurant.
Terrible.
Really?
24 hours. If I drank water, I threw up. It is food poisoning is horrible.
It was fish as well, and luckily because I was sick quite quickly afterwards, about half an hour it takes if you've been poisoned by something. Then, because if you're sick straight away and you manage to get it all out, then usually the impact isn't so bad. But I tell you, I will be writing to them and asking them whether they have not written back.
To be fair, on the Spanish restaurant,
Begins with
they
an R, 4
just
letters.
didn't have mayonnaise. They had not given me food poisoning.
I love the strap of it's all Hellman released. I think the producers deserve a little round of applause there.
Yeah. I love my Hellman's mayonnaise, I have to say. I probably would be equally cross.
Well, thank you very much to Amana and Scarlett. Lots more to come on the show. But first, let's get the news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good morning. The headlines from the GB newsroom. Several councils are considering legal action to stop hotels being used to house asylum seekers. That's despite a court overturning an injunction on the Bell Hotel in Epping yesterday. The Conservatives are calling for an investigation into the Deputy Prime Minister's tax affairs after she reportedly saved £40,000 in stamp duty when buying her second home. A US court has ruled most of Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal, but is allowing them to remain in place for now. At least one person has been killed and dozens injured, including children, in what Ukraine's president is describing as a massive attack by Russia. The president of Palestine and 80 other officials have had their US visas revoked, meaning they can no longer attend the UN Assembly meeting in New York next month. Those are the headlines for now. More for you at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Bethany. Still to come, Prince Harry, yes, our friend, is set to meet King Charles III when he returns to the UK next week. But will there be a royal reconciliation between the brothers?
But next, Washington editor for The Times, Katie Balls, joins us live from Washington, D.C. as the US court rules that many of President Trump's global tariffs are illegal.
Oh, he doesn't care. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News. We are Britain's newsroom.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather, and a bit of an unsettled weekend to come. We've got low pressure moving in from the Atlantic. We're going to see rain sweeping its way eastwards through the day today and turning windy. This is the area of low pressure which is starting to move in. It's associated weather fronts bringing cloud and outbreaks of rain this morning across western areas. So a wet start to the day here. But across eastern areas, sunshine holding on for longer, some glimmers of brightness as we move through into the afternoon, though clouding over. The rain continuing across western parts, the wind starting to pick up, gusts of 25, 30 miles an hour or so, perhaps locally 40 around the coast. So cool here, temperatures in the around 19 to 21 Celsius, but 22 to 24 perhaps in any sunshine holding on across the far east. This band of rain continues to slowly push eastwards as we go through this evening, holding on to some dry weather in the far northeast of Scotland, Orkney and Shetland there, not seeing rain till later, but a wet evening across Scotland, brighter for Northern Ireland with showers, much of England seeing the cloud and the rain push its way eastwards with some brighter skies following for Wales and the West Country with some heavy showers. The wind staying strong as we move through into the early hours as the rain slowly pushes away. Blustery showers moving in, gales developing around some Irish Sea coast as well. And so for everyone overnight, a bit of a blustery night, but it should hold temperatures up around 12 to 14 Celsius as a result. And it means an unsettled start to Sunday. Low pressure in charge, the centre of the low just sat to the northwest of the UK. Showers quite frequent across western areas, but plenty of sunny spells, particularly across central and eastern areas through the day, but the showers becoming more widespread into the afternoon. Some longer spells of rain possible for Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland too, and remaining quite cool and windy. Highs around 22 or 23 towards southeast England.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. It's 11:35. This is Saturday Morning Live. A US appeals court has ruled that most of the tariffs issued by US President Donald Trump are actually illegal.
Well, this could cause Trump's foreign policy agenda to fall apart, as tariffs will be removed when the ruling takes effect in October.
President Trump has said on Truth Social that if the ruling is allowed to stand, it could literally destroy the United States of America. We're joined now by Washington editor for The Times, Katie Balls. OK, Katie, so can you explain this to us so that we Brits can understand what exactly all of this, what is happening and what this all means?
Of course. So we clearly had what Donald Trump called Liberation Day, quite a while now, when he unveiled wide-ranging tariffs on most countries. And since then, and he called them reciprocal tariffs, saying that America had been treated badly for far too long. There'd been trade deficits with key trading partners, and therefore he needed to take steps as president to level the playing field and bring industry back to America. But there was a way for countries to cut a deal to get better terms if they came to the negotiating table. Of course, the UK was the first there, other countries have followed. However, since then, there have been various lawsuits, and not all the tariffs, but specifically some of those wide-ranging reciprocal tariffs have been challenged in the courts because they've been brought on under IEEPA, which is an Emergency Powers Act. And the court found a few months ago that this was not actually the right way to use this legal method. Then was appealed. Now the appeal court has sided with the original judgment. But crucially, those tariffs still stay in place for now, and we're expecting the White House to try and take this to the Supreme Court for a final verdict.
Yeah, because Donald Trump is being pretty bullish about this, isn't he? He's not going to take it lying down. The next step is the Supreme Court. What are Donald Trump's chances there, and what happens if he loses at that point?
Well, if he loses, it's a big blow in the sense that a key part, and the White House have been saying this, of the whole tactics on tariffs, which is a large part of the economic approach of this White House, that have to look at other ways to do it. As for the Supreme Court, we have seen Donald Trump take various fights to the Supreme Court when it comes to his agenda. And we've also seen Donald Trump and the administration be increasingly critical of judges. In terms of the rhetoric, we see that overnight, but also sometimes that does have the effect that I think, judges, are they going to think twice about that fight? Each judgment has had a split verdict. It's not been unanimous if you look at the recent one. So I think it is very much in the air. Where the White House will take some comfort is the fact that they can keep the tariffs in place for now, whereas the initial thing was saying you have to stop everything. If this goes through and Donald Trump is not actually able to do reciprocal tariffs, so the big tariffs in this way, it obviously makes it much harder for him to have a good negotiating hand when it comes to getting countries to come take pretty unfavourable terms to what they had pre him returning to the White House. You think about that US-EU trade deal, it caused deep unhappiness across European member states because they didn't like the terms. But ultimately, Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commissioner, made the call that it was better than the alternative. If it suddenly seems as though the courts are going to stop Donald Trump from doing what he wants, that could make lots of other countries reassess whether it's worth trying to cut a deal with the White House.
If the courts did stop Donald Trump doing what he wants to do, would there be sort of uproar in the US? I know that if an elected Prime Minister here in the UK was stopped from fulfilling their manifesto agenda because of the courts, there would be protests. How will the base react?
Yeah, and we've seen, I think, in polling in America that, I don't think that, the views of judges, people do, there is a skepticism about the courts getting too involved in various things. Now, of course, there are lots of businesses in America and some consumers who are worried about tariffs. They think that, yes, it could have some long-term effect. Donald Trump, JD Vance will talk about jobs coming back, but there's going to be short-term pain, some of which could be felt by consumers. So it's probably a mixed bag in terms of the view of this. But if it looks as though, generally speaking, and on tariffs too, the courts are stopping Donald Trump from doing something that he did talk a lot about during the campaign. He didn't hide the fact that he wanted to bring in wide sweeping tariffs. At one point he said, his favourite word was tariff. So the clues were there. I think lots of people just thought he might not have the nerve to do it. So there would be a big kickback from the base if there was a world where he isn't able to do that. And we see that across lots of parts of the Trump agenda, because he pushes very hard and then almost tries to get people to challenge him. But it's worth pointing out, in the first Trump term, he had tariffs, but they didn't go through this route. They didn't do IEEPA. There are different ways. And some of the tariffs, so industry-specific tariffs, such as the steel tariffs, no one is suggesting that those would be stopped because they've been done for a route which you can't challenge in this way.
Can I just ask you about Donald Trump's health? Because we're running out of time and I want to find out, what do we know? And J.D. Vance has said that he would step in if need be. I mean, in my view, he's the deputy, so that's his job. But people are saying, oh, what's happening to Donald Trump? So what do you know?
Well, we had a few months ago Caroline Leavitt in the White House press briefing tell us that Donald Trump was suffering from a chronic illness, which happens to those above 70 when it comes to his veins. And that came after lots of photos online of people zooming in and saying, what is wrong with Donald Trump? What's happened since then is people are still seeing that he has bloated ankles, he has patches on his skin where he does not, it's clearly looks like it's still this illness at play. He is 79. He is not a spring chicken, even if we compare him to Joe Biden in terms of mental acuity. So I think it's that. But the J.D. Vance comments, he is ultimately just saying what his job is as vice president, but I think lots of people are having some fun with that, and perhaps it's not particularly helpful to a president who's facing these questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's fine. J.D. Vance said that he's in incredibly good health in terms of Trump, so I don't think there's anything wrong with him, apart from obviously he's got probably the stress of everything, just like all of us. I mean, I've got a breakout on my face and all sorts.
Well, thank you very much, Katie. It's really good to hear from you today.
Yes, Katie, lovely. Right.
Still to come, we'll be joined by former royal correspondent Charles Ray, as Prince Harry is set to meet King Charles on his return to the UK next week.
Yes, you'd think perhaps he'd bring the children as well. We'll also be remembering Princess Diana, as tomorrow marks 28 years since her death.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Storm Augustine is easing across northern parts of Europe, bringing mostly settled conditions, though we can't rule out some showers at times. For example, across northwest Portugal, northern parts of Spain and western parts of France, we just have some outbreaks of rain pushing through here. But otherwise, as we move our way eastwards across the Mediterranean, mostly high pressure dominating, so plenty of sunshine to go around. Though as we head into next week, there's a chance we could just start to see some thundery showers push into parts of Italy, but temperatures mostly remaining in the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Dan was one of the victims of the attack, and he was just, within touching distance from the leading suicide bomber. And when that bomb went off, it killed 6 people.
It's still really surreal. It's still a kind of strange thought to realise that I was right in the middle of what happened that day. And even though it's 20 years, it still feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
The pain and the emotional torment that goes with that is just as fresh now as when it just happened.
Mm. And when you think back to that morning, because you've written a book about that day and your experience since, you actually were considering not going into work that day.
Yeah, my whole story of 7/7 is what I kind of term as sliding door moments. There's so many opportunities that were presented to me to do something different, or to stick to my normal routine and not step outside of that. And yeah, there's countless times where if I would have made a different decision, then I wouldn't have been on that train at that time. If I'd have got up on time, if I hadn't missed my stop, there's so many things that I can think back on and think, if only I've done this, if only I've done that. But it serves no purpose now, because what's happened has happened.
You were horrendously injured, but people died on that bus that day.
Yeah, I mean, from the area of the train that I was on when the bomb went off, I'm the only one that survived. He killed everybody around me. And that's incredibly tough to live with, to know that you survived something that everybody around you didn't. And I was pretty much laying in and amongst dead bodies and body parts for about an hour and 40 minutes before I was taken out the tunnel.
And what do you remember about the murderer?
I think the most terrifying thing about it is just how calm he was. There was no fear, there was no hesitation, and the most scariest thing of all was he just looked like everybody else.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Saturday Morning Live with Olivia and Nana.
Yes, good morning to you. Now, lots of you have been saying lots of things. Olivia, have you got any?
I have. We've got Gordon here who says it's usually poor form to speak about somebody not in the room and able to reply. There are quotes coming from Nick Clegg or Tony Blair about what the late Queen said in private. I think that's a fair enough point there. We're all speculating about what the Queen thought, what the Queen believed. She's dead. She doesn't have the chance to answer back. I'm sure she'd be horrified at the idea that the Times have this story saying that she was a Remainer. She did so well to keep out of politics for her entire reign.
Yeah, she was brilliant. She was brilliant. Then Christine, this is on tariffs. She said the tariffs for UK were quite small, so we shouldn't complain. We don't need to worry about Europe. Donald has seen our country right, because of course, Donald Trump, his tariffs may well be illegal, but I don't think he cares. And I think somehow he will influence the Supreme Court if it is taken that way, and somehow he'll get everything through.
Well, we've got lots of criticism here as well for the courts in general. I hope Trump sets an example and sorts out these rich rogue judges. Quite a few people have liked that one there. The Supreme Court is Republican biased, so Trump will win this battle in the end. Very interesting. So people accusing the Supreme Court of being biased both ways.
And on another note of these judges, and I'm presuming this is in regard to the Bell Hotel, Roadrunner says the judges think that they are more important than democracy here and everywhere else.
Well, thank you very much, and keep your views coming in for the last few minutes of our show and into the afternoon too. But for now, the King and Prince Harry could meet for the first time in 20 months when the Duke of Sussex comes to the UK next week.
Harry is expected to be in London for the 3rd anniversary of Queen Elizabeth's death to attend the Well Child Awards.
With the King having no planned visit abroad until late September, this paves the way for a possible reconciliation. Now, joining us now, we are with Charles Ray, the former royal correspondent from The Sun. Charles, is there a real possibility on the cards for reconciliation, or will either Harry or the King manage to squirm their way out of it somehow?
I don't think there is a chance of a reconciliation at all. I mean, Harry is here next week, as you say, ostensibly for the Well Child Awards on September the 8th, which coincides with the anniversary of the death of the Queen. The King and Queen are at Balmoral at the moment. I'm not sure when they're due to come back down, but their next public engagement is the 19th of September. I'm not suggesting that they're going to be there for the most of September, because they will be back sometime. I mean, Harry's flown 5,500 miles to be in the UK. He's still 500 miles short of an actual meeting with the King. Now, when this meeting is supposed to happen, I've no idea. Let's not forget that the source, or the so-called unnamed source for this, comes from America. Now, unless you believe it was leaked by Harry and Meghan, then I would be putting too much store in it. I wouldn't be getting the flags and the bunting out just yet for reconciliation.
And I hear that William, if there is such reconciliation, that William won't be involved or partaking in any of that.
He's made it already clear to various people that he's not interested in any reconciliation with his brother. The other thing you've got to remember as well, not only the fact that William's opposed to all this, you've still got Meghan, who's in America with her 2 children. The last time the King saw his American grandchildren was in 2022. Now, I'm still of the belief that Meghan will never set foot in this country again. So without her involvement in any reconciliation, I just don't see how we can have happy royal families.
And of course, Prince Harry sort of says he wants a reconciliation, and then he dishes all the dirt on the royal family. Do you think he is even serious about wanting to be close to the King again, or do you think he'd rather just carry on his life without the royal family in California?
I'm sure he wants to. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to have a rift in a family, and I think it would be far easier for him to have a reconciliation with the rest of the members of the royal family. But, you know, Harry and Meghan, according to reports, are still planning to do a documentary on his late mother for Netflix. I mean, that's going to go down like a load of bricks with the royal family. Given as well, it's 28 years since she died. Tomorrow is the anniversary.
Well, actually, we were talking in the break just now, Nana and I, about our memories of the day that Princess Diana died. What were you doing then? Were you actually a royal correspondent at the time? Can you tell us a bit about that?
You may find this hard to believe, Olivia. Yes, I was the royal correspondent of The Sun at the time, and it was probably, and still is, the worst day of my life when I found out at 3 o'clock in the morning, our time, that there had been I was told, a minor bump a crash in Paris, and subsequently throughout the night it got worse and worse until I found out she died just before the Foreign Secretary Robin Cook announced her death. It was a terrible, terrible day, a terrible, terrible week. I mean, I still remember it all vividly. You know, and her funeral was a week later.
Can I, and on the subject of the Queen, is very sad. I remember exactly where I was. Very tragic.
Yeah.
Very tragic. But listen, what's the Queen a Remainer? Do you know? Can you give us the scoop? Did you ever talk to her? Did you ever find out what her political views were?
Whenever we had many conversations with the Queen at various points, you know, at receptions and everything else. It was light-hearted conversation. It was never, you know, a controversial question or answer that she would give. You just would not ask the Queen, are you a Remainer? Are you a Brexiteer? You know, do you support the government? Do you not support the government? It just wouldn't have happened. Now, her aides may be in a different position. Now, it was, I think it was a couple of years ago that the Sun broke the news that she was a Brexiteer. Now we're being told that she's a Remainer. So it's all up in the air. Who knows what she thought? And I mean, this book that's come out was written by Valentine Lowe, who's a very, very good journalist, very good reporter. And he's come up with a couple of good anecdotes that have been said supposedly by her. I'm not sure. I have no idea whether she was a Remainer or a Brexiteer.
No, I think it's pretty impossible to say, but thank you very much. Thank you very much, Charles Ray. Really, really good to speak to you. Well, thank you so much for all of you at home. Thank you to Nana. And next, we are coming up for Dawn Neeson with The Weekend. Dawn, what's coming up?
And I'm back.
Thank you very much, ladies. Bit of Team Girl this morning. We are talking those migrant hotel protests. We're going straight live to the latest ones, which are in Milton Keynes. We're also talking the mystery of the disappearing Boris. Where is Boris Johnson and where is Donald Trump? Why our flags are scary, why petrol pumps are scary, but why marriage is the scariest of the lot. And also Reform Romping Home. It's going to be a very, very packed show. Lots of live coverage of the migrant hotels. Don't go too far. We'll see you very soon.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather, and a bit of an unsettled weekend to come. We've got low pressure moving in from the Atlantic. We're going to see rain sweeping its way eastwards through the day today and turning windy. This is the area of low pressure which is starting to move in. It's associated weather fronts bringing cloud and outbreaks of rain this morning across western areas. So a wet start to the day here, but across eastern areas, sunshine holding on for longer. Some glimmers of brightness as we move through into the afternoon, though clouding over. The rain continuing across western parts, the wind starting to pick up, gusts of 25, 30 miles an hour or so, perhaps locally 40 around the coast. So cool here, temperatures in the around 19 to 21 Celsius, but 22 to 24 perhaps in any sunshine holding on across the far east. This band of rain continues to slowly push eastwards as we go through this evening, holding on to some dry weather in the far northeast of Scotland, Orkney and Shetland there. Not seeing rain till later, but a wet evening across Scotland. Brighter for Northern Ireland with showers. Much of England seeing the cloud and the rain push its way eastwards with some brighter skies for Wales and the West Country with some heavy showers. The wind staying strong as we move through into the early hours as the rain slowly pushes away. Blustery showers moving in, gales developing around some Irish Sea coast as well. And so for everyone overnight, a bit of a blustery night, but it should hold temperatures up around 12 to 14 Celsius as a result. And it means an unsettled start to Sunday. Low pressure in charge. The centre of the low just sat to the northwest of the UK. Showers quite frequent across western areas, but plenty of sunny spells, particularly across central and eastern areas through the day, but the showers becoming more widespread into the afternoon. Some longer spells of rain possible for Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland too, and remaining quite cool and windy. Highs around 22 or 23 towards southeast England.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us.